Hi everyone here on site and on the live stream. There it is. Yeah, there are 2.4 billion good reasons to get very excited about the future of travel. I have the good news to share. Here you can see it. 2.4 billion, that is the number that we see international travel, international trips skyrocketing. And we, as Lea said, Google and Deloitte, we partnered on a research project to get that vision of travel by 2040. And I have the honor, I'm Henrike Leverenz, leading the travel industry for Google Germany, and I have the honor to kick that session off to share just some of the snippets of our research. And it's not only about impressive stats, it's also about the key insights for your strategic consideration to transform the travel industry, to get an even better understanding of the evolving needs of the travelers, and to pinpoint the next hotspots of destination. And yes, we are focusing on India as a next hotspot of destination here. So let's start with a global number, coming back to it. Global inbound arrival has doubled every 15 years. And we see that number continuously increasing. And with that, with confidence, we come up to the number of 2.4 billion by 2040. So what is our perspective on the travel landscape? How do we see the travel landscape evolving? Talking now global outbound travel, we see that 42% are coming from the top 5 markets. So a further market consolidation versus 2019. And we see that 4 of them have maintained their position, some with continuous strong growth, US and China. Yet it's first time that we see India entering the top 5 markets with super strong growth rates, 440% compared to 2019. So what is driving India's strong growth, and what do you need to know when entering the market or growing your business further in India? Let's have a look at our top 3. So first, Indian travelers book their international flights with an average lead time of 50 days. You can say just 50 days from an international perspective, and therefore it needs an agile marketing for those fast decision makers. Second, India online travel share will reach 66% by 2028. So a huge digital opportunity driven by that online travel boom. Yet, the market is concentrated and visibility is key. And the third one, only every 4th of Indian is English first. And there are more than 10 languages with each of them more than 30 million native speakers. So a huge linguistic and cultural diversity that India is providing. And we all know we must talk to travelers in their own language, so localization is absolutely key for that market. Let me just add a couple of more. New customer cost acquisition is only at 1/3 compared to European countries. Passport ownership has tripled since 2010, so exceeding now over 90 million. And the last one, more obvious one, the ease of visa restriction obviously is also positively boosting inbound travel. From Google perspective, and you know, we like to talk search queries, we see that the brands, the companies who approach those India specifics and take them into their approaches, they have seen significant growth in search interest for their brands in the Indian market. I'm heading almost over to the panel, yet I would like to get your attention to the QR code where you can get the full study, not just a tiny snippet, the full study, and I would like you to remember the 3 things. 2.4 billion travelers are waiting for you. India is on the rise of the top markets, or to come into the top 5 markets, and the future belongs to the brands who are prepared. Let's hear from them. Over to Lea.
Right. Thank you so much, Henrike Leverenz from Google. This was the perfect scene setting, I'd say. So you see, it's true. data shows it, right? So India is really a force to reckon with. But now, let's dig deeper and learn more about the opportunities of India's travel search, right? But before we dive in, and I think that's important because I can speak from my own experience, I underestimated the complexity of this, right? And it's really, really impressive, I'd say. Let's take a moment to truly grasp the scale of India, because understanding its sheer magnitude is key to understand its rise in travel, I'd say. So India is massive. It's a country covering over 3.2 million square kilometers, with landscapes ranging from everything you can imagine. Himalayas with snow, you have sun-drenched beaches, you have deserts, you have dense forests. You basically have anything you can imagine in one country. But even more staggering than that, I feel, is the size of its population, right? We speak about 1.4 billion people. That's nearly every one in every 6 humans here on Earth. So let that sink in, right, before we get into the discussion. And then to put this into perspective, I find there is a very fascinating example just recently. The Mahakumbh Mela, and I hope I pronounced it correctly, is a Hindu religious festival that on one of the largest human gatherings on the planet that takes place in India, and just recently has been taken place. So over 420 million people participated, and they all gathered in India. They come together. This is the entire population of the United States, the UK, and France combined, coming into a destination to celebrate, right? Imagine what that means in terms of infrastructure, in terms of accommodation, mobility, security, food and beverages. I mean, this is just beyond my personal expectation. So I find this absolutely fascinating. And yeah, it's just a country of monumental scale, and I'm absolutely thrilled that today we can hear from 2 Indian powerhouses coming to us, sharing their knowledge with us as they are global travel players. We have RateGain's Yogesh Chandra and MakeMyTrip's Rishi Singh joining me here on stage. So please, a warm applause, everyone. Yes, thank you so much for coming in and being here.
Sure, pleasure.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you can hear I'm totally fascinated by the topic of India, and I just recently really started familiarizing myself with it in terms of the impact on travel, right? So Yogesh, you are Chief Strategy Officer at RateGain, and for everyone who's not familiar with RateGain, to provide some context for everyone, so you understand why I selected those 2 leaders here. RateGain is a leading provider of AI-powered software as a service solutions for the travel and hospitality industry, helping more than 3,500 customers across 100+ countries to optimize revenue distribution and marketing. And they do this mainly based on data and data intelligence, right?
Correct.
So that was my motivation to reach out to you to say, listen, if someone sits on this much data, then they have probably not only opinions, but they also have informed opinions, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so RateGain is one of the largest, we would like to say the largest, but we are a listed company, so I'm kind of being conservative. We are one of the largest travel intelligence providers and one of the largest travel data aggregators on the whole planet. This data is largest in terms of velocity, variety, and volume. So we have a lot of pricing data. We are a data partner to a lot of big powerhouses, the likes of Expedia and Booking, etc. We work with all the major hotel corporations, a lot of airlines, cruise lines, car rental companies. So I often describe RateGain as within the travel vertical, we are a horizontal. We have intelligence across all different facets of travel.
Yes, and I may add, because I mean that's also fascinating. Wasn't it the first software as a service company having an IPO in India?
That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, that's also, congratulations to that. We're honored to have you here. Rishi, you are Chief Marketing and Business Officer at MakeMyTrip, and you are leading a brand strategy, customer engagement, and corporate travel growth, bringing over 17 years of experience from global giants like PepsiCo, Samsung, and GE Money. So you've seen a lot in your career. And MakeMyTrip, for everyone who doesn't know, I mean, I'm sure you have heard of it, is the leading online travel company in India. And you are powering over 80 million transacted users across your brands, which are MakeMyTrip, GoIbibo, and Redbus. Right.
Right.
I mean, that's probably the brands that then are very known locally. So thank you so much for being here. And is there anything you'd like to add to position MakeMyTrip, why you add value to this very conversation?
Yeah. So thanks, Leah. Thanks for having me here. like you said, and in the session before you, that India is an exciting market. We pretty much we are the largest OT in India. We understand how consumers are behavior. We have enough signals on how travel is shaping up in India, and again, we remain extremely buoyant on this opportunity. And we'd love to talk to you a bit more about how do we see India shaping up, and how do we see this opportunity kind of now. We're already in top 5. Maybe we'll be the top 3 markets in the next 5 years.
Well, I mean, being in the top 5 of the entire world, that's already something, right? I'd say, right? So, but we had a very interesting prep conversation, right? Where I already felt, oh, we should have recorded that because that was already brilliant, at least for me. I really enjoyed this. So, what would you say? And probably it's a hard question because there's probably many, but what's one key trend or insight you see in India's evolving travel landscape? What would you say, Yogesh?
See, that's the thing. I would deviate a little bit and say it's very hard to choose one thing about India. Because India, I often describe is we are not like one country. It's like United States of India, and every single destination now, even more in ITB, I'm noticing. Earlier, 10, 15 years ago, when I used to come to ITB, it was one India stall. Now there is a Kerala stall and a Madhya Pradesh stall and a Rajasthan stall and Gujarat stall and the mountains, the beaches, everything. So firstly, the scale of it. Secondly, the opportunity in terms of all this getting captured, the footprint getting captured, because a lot of bookings happening digitally, giving us a lot of intelligence. And also the rising disposable income from a consumer perspective is making us realize that Indians, both inbound as a destination, there's a lot of infrastructure that is growing to support that inbound travel, but a lot of outbound travel as well. Just to give you some data about, 10 million people came into India, but about 30 million people traveled outside from India, which is staggering. What is also more staggering is the amount of money that they have spent. The growth outbound has been about 8%, but the money spent has been about 25%. Massive amount of disposable income and that discretionary income being used for travel. Very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love to dig deeper later in the conversation to understand more about the nuances of that. But MakeMyTrip, right, is at the center of the surge in Indian travel. I mean, you're in the middle of it. So from your perspective, Rishi, what's the most surprising shift you've seen in how Indian travelers are exploring the world today?
Yeah, I think that there are actually 2, 3 large trends in India which is kind of impacting travel or shaping up travel. The first is, like what Yogesh also mentioned, is just the rising level of affluence. There are around 40 million households in India which now earn more than $10,000, and they have the discretionary money to spend on travel. By the way, the total number of households that live in Germany is 35 million. So we have 40 million, like we almost have a rich Germany living inside India. So that's one, and that 40 million number will grow to 70 million in the next 3 odd years. So there are a lot more. I mean, just the population of India, and then the affluence in India is growing up. So people who can afford travel, number of households who can actually spend on travel is going up dramatically. That's number one. Number two, Indians have become more aspirational. We've always been very instinctive, but we've also become now aspirational. Like very, very interesting data in the previous talk that Indians actually plan their international travel also very impulsively. I mean, 50 days. Actually, in our data, it's even lower. That at times you book your international flight, maybe 30 days in advance, which is unheard of, like in any other country. So this thing of aspiring to see the world, aspiring to kind of look at different experiences, so that's number two. We're also maybe, like competition for Google, but we're maybe also the second largest Instagram market in the world. So,
Instagram, right? Yeah.
So people want to kind of live life, share their life, and go after new experiences. And the third thing, and the underlying thing, is technology. Now, India is like what Yogesh was mentioning. India is in one country. We speak. I mean, the language we speak changes every 100, 150 odd kilometers. Now, what technology is doing is that technology is ensuring that content is available across languages, across formats. And hence, there's also a large surge on online behavior, on e-commerce, quick commerce. So technology is bringing the world closer to India, right? So I think these 3 factors, affluence, this aspiration, this need state of seeing more, aspiring to do more, and finally, technology is a large lever that is kind of impacting travel.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I want to dive into the technology aspect also in a bit. But from your perspective, where you sit with RateGain and your access to massive amount of data, what is the trend or behavior shift that really caught your attention recently with the Indian travelers? Is there something you really said that stood out? Or?
So because technology is coming to the rescue, I would give you two examples. One is that Indian consumer is also a very value-seeking consumer, right? So, and you know, we've got a huge amount of technology talent. So I've noticed people who've built tools that can tell them when is the cheapest time to book where, right? That's one. And secondly, and a lot of these tools are actually being used, and some of them are also being used by consumer fronts to be able to build the trust that, you know, we are not here to make a sale, we are here to guide you best in terms of buying travel. The second thing is what the government is doing. So government has built its own technology stack. It started with a KYC through something which we call Aadhaar in India, and that's an identification. On top of that, you know, any inclusion of financial inclusion that needed to happen because massive population, like Rishi was saying, but a lot of them were financially not included. They are getting included. Now, on top of that, applications are being built through which, you know, something like there's an application called Digi Yatra. Yatra means journey in Hindi. So through that, if you are checking into an airport, within 5 minutes of getting off from your car, you are at the boarding gate. So your facial recognition, your boarding pass, all of that is streamlined, and you don't have to wait in queues. This is a great example of what technology can do, and currently is doing to be able to manage the kind of scale. In the introduction, you mentioned about Kumbh Mela. Kumbh Mela recently attracted, over a period of 40 days, 650 million people.
Oh, it's even more. I said 400.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
When they concluded, it was 650 million.
Wow.
When I went to attend it, because you have to take a holy dip, there's a confluence of 3 rivers. Everything had a QR code. If you wanted, because it's a massive show, right? If you wanted to do something in spiritual, there was a QR code for that. If you wanted to do something experiential, there was a QR code for that. So the entire event
It's digitized.
is digitized, and the entire footprint is captured. On top of that, all the SIM cards that were active there is able to tell the government how many people stayed for how long, how many people came from where, how much distance was covered, how many people you know, came, stayed there, went back, came again. You know, so every single, how many people were not able to come because the infrastructure was such that if they were taking flights or trains, it was okay. If you're taking a road, there was traffic jam, right? So a lot of people had to go back. So government has all that data and can now leverage that data to be able to push what is now becoming big in India, which is called spiritual tourism or pilgrim tourism.
Right.
You know, a lot of such trends are actually coming out as well as a result of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting, and the numbers are just beyond imagination, right?
Since the last we spoke, 20 million people got added. See, that's the scale of it.
That's the thing. This very minute is like, it's growing, right? It's like, yeah, okay. Well, I mean, India's outbound travel is also booming, right? Obviously, so we said that they're traveling. So, Rishi, what destinations are benefiting most from the Indians coming and exploring the world?
So, there's a funny example. There's a country called Kazakhstan. I mean, maybe 5-6 years before, the only reason why you would know Kazakhstan is if you saw like a very famous character called Borat. But what happened was that Kazakhstan opened up their visa. They opened up and a direct flight started going to Kazakhstan. Now every Indian would know the country. I mean, so there are two distinctive trends, that is, or three, I would say again. 3 types of destinations are getting extremely famous. The first one is within the 6-hour flying window, where there's a direct flight and visa is easily available.
So it is convenience. It's 6 hours of flight, it's accessibility, right?
Yeah. For example, if you stay in Delhi, and the southernmost metro in India is called a city called Chennai. Delhi to Chennai is 3 hours. So 6 hours isn't much. And again, if there's easy entry, there's easy visa entry, then those countries are seeing huge amount of growth. And a lot of examples, Kazakhstan, a lot of new countries like Vietnam, and then the old ones like Dubai, UAE, and Singapore, Thailand. So this window is a very, very interesting window where actually Indians start thinking that this is domestic travel only, you don't need a visa, you can, you can just book your flight and go, and direct connectivity. The second kind of destinations are the ones where Indians are more familiar, we have 35 million Indians staying outside India as well. And the 5 large countries where there's Indian aggregation is US, Canada, UAE, UK, and surprisingly Germany.
Germany?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
There's a large Indian contingent who lives in Germany as well. So what happens is because you have someone living in that country, you're familiar with the country. You think, okay, like supposing I'll visit a few destinations, stay with my friend or family, and hence these countries are seeing good growth because of familiarization and family being there, and hence travel may be slightly more affordable. And the third kind of destinations are, which are something unique about it. For example, Indians, like I have a colleague sitting here who's just going to see the Northern Lights.
Oh, so
yeah.
Iceland, or?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
So, so Indians are traveling for unique experiences. Like Oktoberfest is really, really big. I mean, you would see the amount of visas that Indians apply for during, like for example, 6 years back, people in India would think Oktoberfest is October.
Right.
Now we know it's September end.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
confusing, right? Yeah.
So I think the even economy and experience economy, that wherever you can go for a unique experience, whether it's seeing the autumn in Japan or Northern Lights in Europe or Oktoberfest, or if there's a music concert happening, or if there's a Formula 1 race happening in UK. So I think so all these three are seeing huge amount of growth from an outbound point of view. And then there's a lot of inbound as well, because these 35 million people, when they come back to India, earlier they would come back and only visit family. Now they come back and discover India. So yeah,
okay,
so there's a lot of
understood.
cross,
Yeah.
like the point
Yeah.
Yogesh was making, that if 10 million people came inside, 30 million went out as well. So this, just for India, the world is becoming an oyster.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. And I mean, you see so much in your data, Yogesh, right? And is there anything you can share in terms how Indian travelers book, search, how they get inspired? Is it the same way as we know it here, what we discuss all day, the ecosystem, or do they have a very preferred way of searching for where to go next?
It's both, you know. Unlike a country like China, India, you know, is an avid Google user, right? India is an avid Instagram user. So a lot of buying behavior in terms of the points of sale are similar to the majority of the world, right? But in terms of value seeking, generally Indians have been associated with, they seek a lot of value, but of late the affluence that we see is also indicative of the fact that, you know, the ADRs itself in India are very high. Last year the ADRs grew about 39%.
Wow.
The occupancy grew about 8%. So, and generally Indians are, you know, that section of that affluent section, if they go outside as well, you know, Maldives is a very big destination. An average daily rate in Maldives would be like 500, 600. Normal length of stay is 5 nights, 6 nights. It's a very popular destination, you know. Egypt, Dubai. So a lot of these destinations that were known to have very high ADRs suddenly have India as a big source market, which was not the case 5, 10 years ago. And in terms of the other piece is, Indians like to take multiple trips in a year. So what used to earlier circle around school holidays and Christmas holidays, now somebody in your circle is always traveling. They're always on a holiday. In a lot of cases, there's flexibility in terms of schools and all of that, and people are working from home. A lot of visa restrictions have also come off. New air routes have come. All of this is, you know, boosting tourism in a big way. I'll again share some data with you. In 2 of the majority airlines in India, the big ones. Firstly, we are the 3rd largest aviation market. The 3rd largest airline in terms of market cap is an Indian company. And 2 of the largest airlines have, between themselves, ordered about 1,500 planes that are to be delivered. 140 new airports are to open in the country in the next 10 years. So a lot of travel is also, you know, going to happen.
Right.
And that's what we are seeing in terms of it. But from a general buying behavior, it's booking throughout the year, booking multiple destinations, and not necessarily value seeking.
All right, okay, understood. And well, what would you say, Rishi, like a global brand, what would they have to do to attract Indian travelers if they really wanted to maybe shift strategy and say, that's very interesting to us, we want to focus on them? Yeah. What's your advice? Yeah,
see, I would say the Indian traveler is a very demanding traveler. And the value consciousness comes from there. But at the same time, 30% of Indians going to any destination, new destination outside India, are going for the first time. There's a lot of first-time travelers coming to every country from India. So these guys need trust markers. And that's where, and that's where global brands have a huge role to play, because you know a Marriott, you know that if I go and stay in a Marriott,
There's a certain
it'll
standard.
be a good hotel, and so I think there's inherent advantage for global brands because they have trust markers, and whether you're a hotel brand or a flight brand, so you're giving that trust on day zero. At the same time, I think I don't think the Indian travel economy can be ignored now. So I think brands have to think about that they have to, when they build properties or when they build value propositions or when they build, they have to keep the Indian traveler in mind. And for example, what we do on our platform right now is, when you're searching for an outbound destination, one of our large filters is loved by Indians. So we try and tell them, okay, this is the kind of hotel that has Indian food, or like Indians are vegetarian. A lot of Indians are vegetarians. So give them vegetarian options. There's a very small insight. It's a funny thing,
Yeah.
but I think I must speak about this. Like very small insight that Indians in their toilet need a jet spray, and most of the European hotels don't have a jet spray. I mean, it might look like a frivolous thing, but it's a huge problem in India. The Indians going outside, like, does my toilet have a jet spray? I mean, a water spray too. So there are these insights which global brands must think about because the size of the economy, the travel economy in India is so big and growing so rapidly. See, our GDP is growing 7-8%. Our travel spends is almost growing 2x of that, around 14-15%. So it's a large travel economy, and it's going to grow faster than most of the other economies, like even the data that you were showing, that India's grown 440%. So it's with more flights getting added, with more affluence. I think these global brands have to now think about personalizing for Indians and giving those trust markers.
Right, okay. Well, it's very, very helpful tips. And Yogesh, what would you say when you would say you talk to a global brand and they want to focus on the Indian target group? Is there anything you would add, or where you'd say, well,
Right.
do you have a playbook for us?
Yeah, so it's hard to come up with a playbook, but if one observes the Indian buying behavior, I think things become easy. A lot of what Rishi is saying, very, very valid comments. If you really think of it, the likes of a Marriott or a IHG, Wyndham, Hilton, very global corporations, right? So they've got hotels in all parts of the world. But honestly, it's very hard to distinguish one from the other.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
If you really think of a homegrown Indian brand, it would have a lot of things factored in, such as the breakfast spread, but also the fact that Indians are a bit more relaxed with time. So in certain countries, a check-in time would now be at 3 p.m. or a 4 p.m. A checkout time would be at 10 or 11, effectively leaving you with an 18-hour stay basis, right?
Right.
That's not something that a lot of Indians would be okay with. So they would want something like a 24-hour check-in, check-out.
Right. So even more flexibility as we feel we give already to travelers.
Correct.
Correct.
And not make it like you will get penalized by the rule to say if the check-in time is 3 p.m., you can't check in before 3 p.m.
Right.
Or nothing, or always it needs to be commercialized. Sometimes if you have a room available, if somebody has checked out early, and we've got hotel background, we know how hotels work. Not everybody checks out at 12. People check out at 6 in the morning. Those rooms get cleaned up. So if you can offer that to an Indian customer, that customer would be delighted. I think a lot of those nuances in terms of what an Indian would like, if there is a welcome drink, Just yesterday I was talking to an Indian brand, and they say if you go to a $20 hotel, you go to a $200 hotel, you get watermelon juice as welcome drink, right? But we are a luxury resort, we like to offer unlimited cocktails. That is something that would really resonate very strongly with a person, even if buying in the affluent segment, to be able to say, okay, I'm getting good value from this,
Yeah.
And how much welcome drink can you drink? But it's just a very good way to...
It's a nice gesture, right? And, and if it has such an impact, yeah.
Very, very nice. Also, Indians are now seeking experiences a lot more. So if you make the local stay very authentic and not make it difficult for you to be able to distinguish, make it difficult. If the current system makes it difficult for them to distinguish between one brand and the other, but if you really have true identity to offer what is really local, an Indian would like a lot about it, and then would talk about it on Instagram, and the network effect comes in, and 200 more people see that, and they all want to do the same thing. So that's how it will fuel up more.
Yeah. Well, I see the time, and I get. I want another 20 minutes on top, a minimum, right, to cover all the topics that I would like to dive into. We don't have the time for it. But what would you say, also in terms of like challenges, maybe? There's a lot of opportunity, right? But is there any challenges you're seeing within the Indian travel search that we have to be careful about? Like, is there something to watch out for?
So, I'll go first. I think the pace of infrastructure coming up is terribly slow as compared to what Indians are prepared to avail.
Right, so it's a mismatch of expectations versus what they will find when they travel?
Not just expectation, in terms of travel infrastructure, in terms of the roadways, the
right.
air and all that. Like, more Indians are ready to travel and are having to pay more prices, which makes things a bit more exorbitant and unaffordable, right, because there is restricted supply. So, more hotel rooms, more airports, more roadways, all of that will be massively beneficial. The other challenge that I can think of is visa is a massive, massive problem, for a lot of people who want to travel. So a lot of people must be wanting to come to ITB Travel as well and have not been able to. So, those are two challenges that I would like to highlight.
Right, okay, so that we actually prepared for that, and then the visas. And would you add anything?
Yeah, I think the other large challenge is sustainability. I mean,
sustainability, right.
Over-tourism. Because what we're seeing in India as well, that like a lot of popular sites are getting, like the ecosystem is fragile, and over-tourism can actually hurt the ecosystem in the long term. So I think we'll have to be just careful about how do we sustain travel, and how do we not kill a destination with more tourists. I mean, maybe that's the third one.
Yeah, that's also very, very important to watch. So, I mean, I'm totally intrigued with this. I will keep watching what's happening, and I will look forward to continue conversation.
And you must come to India.
Yeah, and I hope you come back next year, and then we have this as a standard session, so we can always keep learning about India. But for everyone who's here for the next days, make sure to pass by RateGain in Hall 8.1, right? It's a booth 125.
125.
125, right? The team is amazing. Engage with them. And Rishi, you're here as well. Are you here for the next day so people can connect with you? If not, I'd say connect on LinkedIn, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. So I'd say thank you so much. A warm applause, please, for Rishi from MakeMyTrip and Yogesh from RateGain. And I'd say back to Katie.